Dukhtar was a part of the South Asian lineup at the 2014 Toronto International Film Festival, which brought to screen the story of a mother's desperate attempt to free her daughter from becoming a child bride, married off at the age of 10. ANOKHI Pulse TV chatted with Director Afia Nathaniel at the TIFF Bell Lightbox to discover her take on the issue of child brides and the film's inspiration. Dukhtar, your first feature film, which is being featured here at the Toronto International Film Festival, was one that caught my eye right away when I was seeing all the South Asian film lineup here this year. It's such a special film because it talks about a story that's all too common, especially in South Asian cultures. Can you tell me about where this story came about?
In '99, I heard a story which just refused to leave me. It was a story of a mother who kidnaps her two daughters and makes a run from the tribal areas in Pakistan. That image sort of stayed in my mind of this woman determined to find a new life for her children, and that became the impetus to write the story of the hunter and the hunted.
Now describe that process of creating a story about the hunter and the hunted, and it's a mother and daughter running from the huntsman.
Yes.
How were you able to create that delicate balance and still create emotion within this story rather than just being a duck and goose chase?
I think the most important thing is in any film, it's the emotional life of the characters, and sometimes when you're working in the thriller genre, it's very easy to overlook that or kind of sacrifice that. So I tried not to do that, which is why the film is in between a road trip, in between a thriller, and not quite one or two or the other, you know, it's a bit of all of these.
I was reading your biography. It described your childhood in Pakistan, just being the only girl in your family, not being able to leave your home. Tell me how that experience, that life experience, was filtered through the story.
I was brought up in two different kinds of worlds. One was the city life with my grandmothers. I'm one of three girls in the family, a very matriarchal setup. But in the city, you're not really allowed to go out, step out of the house. But the summer life on the Air Force Base with my parents was when one could be, you know, biking around as a girl. And so these two worlds are somewhat reflected in the film as well, because the protagonist, she's on the run, you know. She's literally out there. She begins to get a feel of what this freedom is. So I guess one taps into one's childhood experiences, even though they're so opposite in nature.
Zainab, which is the daughter, do you feel that your childhood experiences have been reflected in her character at all?
She's innocent, and yet at the same time she has all these questions that are for an adult and by an adult, and she's at that stage in life where it's very common for children to be like that. I have a daughter of my own, and I can see how those qualities are present in children at the same time, and I would say I sort of gave those to Zainab as well.
Child brides, it's very common, and it's been a struggle, you know, in South Asian societies. Did you feel any pressure translating that story into film?
I think the pressure really is that in Pakistan at least, they're not willing to embrace the idea of a film in which the two main characters happen to be female. That was the hardest challenge. Not so much the aspect of child marriage. Yeah. I'll tell you what, our media is very, very progressive, but in cinema, it's never been tapped. So the harder challenge was, how do you create this content when you do know there are audiences that want to see it, but you don't necessarily have the means to create that?
Do you feel justified after seeing the final product, having it featured here at the Toronto International Film Festival and other film festivals as well?
Every audience, every person would see the film and interpret it differently. I'm really curious how others interpret it too, because some people see it as a child marriage story, some people see it as a love story, some people see it as a search for freedom. So it's all of these things. And it depends on what you really root for or care for more deeply. And certainly the issue of child marriage is very, very important for me as a mother to a daughter myself. I believe this is the time to be able to break the silence. It's not just South Asia, it's a lot of other countries around the world. And every year, 14 million girls bear the fate of this child marriage. So if we do nothing in this next decade, 140 million girls would have lost their childhood and their innocence this way.